Hi there, welcome to this week's episode of your show, Let's Talk. I'm Chim Onyebilama, your host on GNCR, your community radio station. I have as my guest today Philip Rosenthal. He is the director of the ChristianView Network. Philip, you're welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Philip is joining me all the way from Cape Town. Philip, well done for all the work you do for the body of Christ. Could you, first of all, tell us what Christian View Network is?
Okay, well, ChristianView Network is a network of people around the country who are influencing and lobbying government, the media, business to promote a Christian worldview in five main areas, and that is the sanctity of life, the sanctity of marriage, religious freedom, parents' rights in education, and also Israel's right to defend itself. And within that, we've got many projects and campaigns that we're running.
That's beautiful. So, where did this start from? What could you tell us the story of where this whole vision came from, and how the Lord led you to where you started off this thing?
Well, I think I could tell two stories that led in that direction. I think that the first story is the question of how I got into this, and the what happened there is that I was a student at university, and we were evangelizing people. And one day we put out a pamphlet to try to educate people and reach people who were from the LGBT point of view. And the student government then banned this pamphlet. And so at that point, we realized that we needed to have influence on the student government to stop that sort of censorship. And I think it was a warning in terms of what was coming in the country, because what happens at universities often starts there and then it spreads out to the rest of the country. So, and certainly since then, we've had many attempts to silence Christianity in the country nationally. Now, the good part of that story is that we then published the thing anyway, and people were much more interested to read what the Bible had to say about homosexuality than they would have been if it hadn't been banned. But that's what launched me into advocacy, and I worked with a number of organizations, which included my church group, and then later for the Evangelical Alliance, running a pro-life campaign. But then we also realized that it takes time for such large organizations to make a decision to take up a particular issue, and we needed to often act quickly to lobby the government. And so I was approached actually by somebody who was a former homosexual, who said that we really needed to lobby against the Equality Bill in year 2000, and President Mbeki was about to sign it. And so and the only way we could get things going was to found a new organization, which then became Christian View Network. So it's been going then 25 years since that time.
Wow, 25 years. And in those 25 years, what has been the high point? If you look highlight for you, when you look back, because I see this as you fighting different battles in the space of advocacy. What are some highlights that you say, okay, Chim, let me tell you about this. They might have been success story, they might not have been such big success story, but they have significant things in your life and milestone in the last 25 years.
I think that there's in each one of those domains that I've just mentioned, we have had major campaigns, and the one of the largest campaigns that we've had has just concluded, started in 2017, which was the campaign around the BELA Education Bill. And I think that a lot of Christians were discouraged because they were using the slogan to say, "Stop the BELA Bill," and the BELA Bill passed in last year. But what I think many people are not aware is that the BELA Bill that passed in 2024 was a completely different BELA Bill to what was originally proposed in 2017 when we first launched that campaign. And at the time, we gave the government a shopping list of the things that we wanted changed in that bill, which were taking away parents' rights to control education. And the really good news is that by the time it was passed and the regulations have been made, they agreed to 3/4 of the things that we asked them for. So I think that that is really encouraging, and that is a reason why we need to keep speaking up. But we have also had campaigns on the issue of euthanasia, for example, and there were newspapers were saying in 1999 that euthanasia was just about to be legalized. That campaign gave up in 2004. And then the newspapers started saying the same thing when there was a court case in 2015. And they were saying that euthanasia was about to be legalized, and it hasn't happened. And that campaign has also run out of steam. So I think that often Christians, by speaking up, can have a significant impact. I would also put forward the stories of the individuals who we have helped to defend, who have been persecuted for their Christian faith. And for example, in 2015, Zizipho Pai was the vice chair of the University of Cape Town SRC. She was thrown off that as a result of rioting and bullying from various woke opponents. And we defended her right to the university together with others. And the good news is that she was reinstated. And the main politician who was opposing her was forced to apologize for harassing her, and was then when his term of office finished in Parliament, he was not on the list for the next parliamentary session, thankfully. And so I think that was a victory, that Christians stood their ground, and Zizipho Pai had spoken up against same-sex marriage when the Americans legalized it in 2015. Then a second example was Dr. Jacques de Vos, who was persecuted for trying to persuade a mother to keep her unborn baby and not abort the unborn baby. He was persecuted by the medical authorities. And the good news there is that, firstly, the hospital withdrew the charges, and later the Healthcare Professions Council withdrew the charges, and he is now practicing medicine. And that, I think, gives encouragement that many others can stand their ground. Also, the credit to a number of other organizations, such as Doctors for Life, who also helped defend him. And then more recently, there was Sean Christie at just last year at the Northwest University, who stood up at freshers' orientation that they were being indoctrinated with LGBT propaganda. And he said, this is nonsense. And half the crowd walked out, and he was then expelled from Northwest University. And again, we defended him. And it was a wonderful opportunity to speak to the academics about Christian worldview. But at the end of the day, they found him innocent of the alleged charges of hate speech, and that he was allowed to complete his degree. And I think that gives strength to others to speak up again. So we seek to maintain a Christian voice and to give support to other people who courageously speak up.
That's beautiful to have all these landmarks in the last 25 years. You alluded to this in your answer just now. This question of why is this so important? Because somebody might sit there and say, does it matter? The world is going to get darker and darker, according to the Bible. Sinners are going to, iniquity is going to abound. Uh, why should we keep trying to push back darkness? Let's just evangelize and win as many souls as we can. What do you answer to that?
Okay, well, I think there's a number of issues there. The firstly, yes, I do very much believe in evangelism, but evangelism is not only about conversion. It is also, Jesus said in the Great Commission, teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. But I also think that the reason why people convert in the first place is that they need to know that they have broken God's law, deserve his judgment, and thus need his mercy. If they don't understand that, there's no reason to convert. And then further than that, we need an environment where the government gives religious freedom so that we can have evangelism and conversions. And we also, in order to obey those commandments of God, need a cooperative society in which we can obey God's commands, and we have those freedom to do that. So, and because we have cooperative societies in schools, for example, where we send our children, and other people who are not Christians also send their children. So we have to have a legal framework where we can work together, and agreements that we can work together, so that allows us to obey God's commands to us. So I think that the narrow interpretation of simply evangelizing for conversion is true, but it has to take place in the environment of those other things. Now, if we take, for example, in evangelizing, we ended up also assisting a lady. His name was Miriam in in Sudan, who was given the death penalty by the court in Sudan because she converted from Islam to Christianity. Okay, now we then lobbied the South African ambassador to put pressure on the government of Sudan. We also, other Christians protested outside the Sudanese embassy, and thankfully that lady was released. But those countries do not allow conversion. They don't allow evangelism except illegally. And so we obviously had an opportunity to help that person, but at the same time, we cannot tolerate those types of threats in our own country, even in a small way. And for example, in Durban, where you are, there was about 2 years ago an evangelist by the name of Simeon Chetty who talked about his own conversion and how Jesus was greater than the Hindu gods. And a group of Hindus got really offended by this and threatened they wanted to sue him for R1 million. And so again, we sought to stand up for him, and together with other Christians, and thankfully that case was dropped against him. But the thing is that we cannot simply focus on evangelism. We also have to create an environment in which there can be freedom to have evangelism, which we cannot take for granted. It has only been that situation in Europe in maybe the last 200 years. Before that, you could not just go and preach and evangelize wherever you wanted to. You were in high risk of being thrown in jail if you said something that the government didn't like. And so we can have those restrictions coming back again. And particularly there is pressure from the woke who don't like what the Bible says about certain cultural issues such as homosexuality or other religions or whatever, and we have to protect that right.
Now, when you're speaking now, you're talking about we went to an a lobbying group. Can you walk us through how you go about your advocacy? Just to the average Joe, you maybe you read the newspaper and then you see that a bill is coming. Let's take the BELA bill some years ago. You
Yeah.
heard it was coming. How do you marshal the troops? Who are the troops? What are the tools you use? Uh, except if it's top secret.
No, no, no.
How do you
It's not top secret. Um, the
how do you
okay.
marshal
You
the
you can
and
find Christian View Network on social media. Uh, at if you search Christian View Network, one word, on Facebook and on YouTube, then you will find us. Just don't put it separate words. Put it one word, Christian View Network, and you can subscribe to those channels, which will update with information about the latest things that are happening. And then on those articles there, you can also find the WhatsApp and the Telegram channels, which give information there. And usually when we put out a news update on a particular topic, then we'll say, well, here is the email address of the person that you can write an email to have your say. But the other thing, which is, I think, a huge blessing in our constitution and democracy, is that the government is required to consult people in all the provinces. And normally they go to at least 3 cities in each province when there is a bill in Parliament that affects the provinces. And 2 examples of this that have are happening this year. One is the marriage bill, which is currently in consultation and will be coming to the Western Cape probably next month. The second is the CRL Commission's plan to regulate religion, which they say they are going to have consultations in every province. And I suppose the third one is also the national dialogue, which is something which is being proposed by the president to consult on a range of subjects. But all of these things, when it is advertised and the dates are given and the venues are given, then you can go along and you can have your 3 minutes to have your say to the government in those locations if you arrive. And so we need people who are courageous and informed. And if you follow us on our channels of Facebook, YouTube, Telegram, WhatsApp, then you will get that information. And then you can use that to have your say. And I'm so grateful. We've just had the Northern Cape consultations on the marriage bill, and in every single one of those venues in Uppington, Kuruman, and Kimberley, the majority of the people that spoke up spoke against the marriage bill. Now, actually, the marriage bill is a bad name for it. This is a polygamy bill. What they're wanting to do is to let every man have the right to take more than one wife. And we totally oppose this. That's going to make women a whole lot more vulnerable. And
is wait, sorry. Is polygamy not already legal in the country?
well, polygamy is legal at the moment for if you get married under customary law. But under customary law, you go into the marriage with the understanding that that man could take on another wife, for
Yeah.
example, under Zulu culture. But most people are not choosing that. And I think that most women say, no, I don't want to be married under
So
that
this new law,
form.
if I'm correct, this new law is it going to say if you get married in the court or in the church, wherever you get married, you are allowed by law to have a second wife in a polygamy. Is that what the new law is saying?
That is what the new law is proposing. But they are trying to use an excuse for it to say, well, you must have the consent of your first wife. But that is, to me, misleading, because women are in a weak position to negotiate. And if they're financially dependent and physically weaker and got children and whatever, and so they can be coerced. And so we are completely opposed to that. If a man made vows to be faithful to one wife, then he must keep those vows. He can't change it to say now he can turn his girlfriend into his second wife or his third wife or whatever. Um, and so we
Under
are completely opposing that.
this proposed law, that means a man who is married would not be able to, would not be sued. The wife cannot take him to court if she finds out he's committing adultery. Would that be what the new law is saying? If he can only say that this is my new wife, is that what the new law is looking for?
Um, okay, well, at the moment, I don't think you can sue for adultery. It is more complicated than that, but certainly the new law would make put women in a much weaker position because their husband could take on a second or a third wife, even though he's promised to be faithful to one wife, so he can break his marriage vows, and we don't believe that should be allowed to happen at all. The people who want polygamy can, if they are from that culture, in terms of the existing law, can get married in terms of that customary law. But we don't think that people who've been married in the General Marriage Act should be allowed to do that.
Okay, if I go back to my original question, what your answer is about how you marshal the troop is that you basically rely on social media and emails and all that to be able to communicate with people what is going on and give them email addresses of those they should write to and where they can meet up to make their voice heard. I believe that's how you go about this. Am I
Um,
correct?
there are there are many ways in which we go about it. We also go about it through networking. We work through ministers' fraternals, churches. But I gave that example because that is an easy way that anybody can join in and find us if they want to make a difference. And so they can subscribe to those channels on Facebook or YouTube or WhatsApp. Just search on YouTube or Facebook for Christian View Network.
Philip, tell us about your present advocacy in the area of religious rights. Run us through what is going on in that. What is the law you are
Well,
lobbying
the
against? What
well
does it
is
mean? Sorry,
essentially
I'm
in
trying to stage for
yeah.
you. First of all, help us to understand what this law looks like, what it's going to do to us, and then tell us how you're going about lobbying against it.
Okay, well, I think it's important for the the listeners to understand what is being proposed, and I think that this is one of the most threatening issues for all churches, all pastors, um, and indirectly the radio stations as well, um, which I believe they need to be actually educating their congregation so that they are ready to speak up when the opportunities of the hearings come. But the CRL Commission, which is the Cultural and Religious Rights Commission, is proposing a system by which you can only be a pastor or a religious leader if you are registered with the government. Okay. Now they say that they are going to use this to stop religious corruption. And we agree that religious corruption is a serious problem, but we think that this is going to make things worse and not better, because the the government has not been good at dealing with its own corruption. We don't believe they're going to do anything helpful in getting involved in trying to regulate the church. It's also a principle that Jesus created the church as a self-regulating organization that is independent of the government. The government doesn't know what is biblical and what is unbiblical they are not competent. They are to decide that. Most of them are not Christians themselves. We have no way of determining who in government is a Christian. So the church, as a self-regulating organization, needs to be governed by people who are themselves genuine Christians. But how is the government supposed to know who was genuine Christians and who was not genuine Christians? Because of that, they have to also allow for false leaders, because they cannot determine who is right and who is wrong. And the risk is that if the government is given that power, they are also going to shut down good ministers, and possibly, which is exactly what happened with when the Anglican Church, for example, was the state established religion in England, and when the Lutheran Church was the state established religion in Germany or in Scandinavia, that they would just shut down everybody else. And so we don't want the government to have the power to shut down anybody. Um, but we do accept that the government can regulate churches and as to, for example, their building regulations, their fire regulations, their traffic regulations. The churches must abide by the criminal law with regard to how they look after children. They must, with regard to sexual issues, whatever. But we do not want any special regulations that apply only to religious people, because the government has no competence in that field. They cannot determine that. And we are not supposed to, in any case, bring our disputes as Christians in terms of 1 Corinthians 6 to the government to adjudicate between us. And so this is something which historically has been bad in every instance, and it is contrary to the scripture. So we need to completely oppose this. And I think that on many other issues, pastors have kind of said, well, they don't want to get involved in speaking up on bills and acts in Parliament or whatever, because that's political. But this is not just political. This is now the government interfering in the space of the church. And I think that there's no excuse for churches not speaking up against that. They need to mobilize, educate their people, because this is a very serious threat to to the freedom of all of us. And if they are allowed to get a foothold in regulating religion, there's nothing to stop them then adding another clause to say that they're going to regulate Christian radio and say, well, you better say stuff which is politically correct and try and control you in those ways. So we absolutely do not want state control of religion.
Okay, I get it now. So, how do you measure? Where are you now with this one, with this particular advocacy? Where would you say?
Well, look, we've been researching the issue, as have other organizations also been researching the issue, and putting out articles to educate people as to why we don't want this to be regulated. We were also are ready to do interviews such as you are doing now, and then as soon as the government announces the public hearing locations, we will then be mobilizing people to go there to speak up, just as we have with the BELA bill and the marriage bill. And we hope that your listeners will be among those who go and speak up. Thank you so much to those who did speak up on the marriage bill in KwaZulu-Natal. That was really helpful. And then we will also be writing submissions and such like to Parliament. And people can also write their letters to the press, to all the newspapers, or on social media from your own platforms to say that we really oppose this. and to get into the public debate, not just on religious radio and Christian radio, but in phone into other radio stations and say we just really don't want this. The government must leave the church alone and not try and regulate it.
Okay. Philip, thank you so much for making that clear. I want you to once again repeat what you had said earlier as we begin to round up. What you said earlier about how people can get information from you. You have a mailing list, you have just repeat the social media handles and all that once again, so that
Okay.
those who are joining us now can know that they can jump into it by going into those spaces, please.
Okay, well, there's ChristianView Network. If you write it as one word with no spaces between it, and you search for that on YouTube, you'll find our YouTube channel. You subscribe to that. If you search for it on Facebook, you'll find our Facebook channel. And then also on those channels, you can, underneath the articles at the bottom in the footer, you will find links in which you can subscribe to the WhatsApp and the Telegram channels, which will give you then daily updates on those things that can come through to your phone. And we can also send information through email and such like. And also, if anybody personally wants to get involved, they can also email me, mail at christianview.co.za, and then we'd be really grateful to have you more involved in getting to these hearings and speaking up and emailing into politicians. And I think that it really does have an influence. We also fought this battle against the CRL Commission in 2016, 2017. Thankfully, they were forced to withdraw that. And
The same regulating of churches.
they made the same proposals in 2016, 2017, and Parliament rejected it at the time. But now the same chairman has been reappointed and is attempting to do it again. So we have to be prepared to speak up against this a second time.
I've been speaking to Philip Rosenthal. He's the director for ChristianView Network, an advocacy group that seeks to provide voice for the Christian worldview in the public space. Philip has told us that they have a website, they have social media handles, they have emails in those places, and they want you to get involved. Philip, what would be your last word to our listeners as we wrap this up?
Well, I think that we need to be encouraged by the victories on the BELA Bill, with the government having agreed to 3/4 of what we asked for, and also with the examples of the 3 people under persecution who spoke up and stood their ground, Zizi Popai, Jacques de Vos, and Sean Christie. And we need to stand with these people and keep speaking up and know that it does make a difference, and we do win, and it is a small number of people who make the difference at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. We'll be speaking to Philip Rosenthal. He's the director of ChristianView Network and working out of Cape Town, speaking about the various advocacy advocacy they have been doing to make sure Christians have a voice in policy making in the country. Philip, thank you for all you do for the Lord, and thank you for joining us on Let's Talk this week.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, everyone who has joined us. We'll see you same station, same time. Bye-bye.